During the break, we have received another visitor. A visitor from the past. And he has brought along his friend. Before we chase them away, I'd like to ask this gentleman, whose name is Mr. Robert Astick. In a history class, I suppose we could call him Asterisk or Mr. Footnote, whatever the case might be. I'd like to ask him a few questions which will help to emphasize certain points about the agricultural revolution. Hello.
Hello.
You don't look like a shepherd. What are you doing with this sheep?
First of all, let me say that I enjoyed very much the first part of your lecture, and that I am extremely pleased to be allowed to be here tonight. Now, you are correct. I am not a shepherd. In fact, I employ a vast number of shepherds. No, you see, they ply their trade on my holdings of some 4,000 acres of land. There we grow a variety of crops, including green feed, turnips, and grain. And as well, we raise all sorts of livestock. But my favorite are the sheep. As I perambulate through the fields of my number of enclosures, newly enclosed lands, I carefully count them and say, God bless each one.
Well, we're glad you stopped your perambulations here today. It's a nice sheep. What do you find so attractive about raising sheep?
The challenge. I take an almost scientific approach to the raising of them, breeding and crossbreeding until we arrive at the exact combination of characteristics most suited. For instance, take Amanda here. As you can see, she stands very correct. Her fleece is exceedingly thick and white, no black in it at all. And she doesn't suffer from wool blindness, fleece over her eyes, which is so common. No, Amanda here is a perfect example of her breed.
Well, let me understand what you're about, Mr. Astick. You have taken communal grain fields where cattle used to roam amongst the stubble in the fallow. You used to pasture the fallow, didn't you? And you've divided them into moderate-sized plots separated by hedgerows. The cattle are pastured in some of them, and in the other ones you grow various crops. And then you can control your animals, you can control breeding, you can control their activity in the fields.
That's exactly right. And my fields are further enriched by their dung. Yes, there were fields that I had that were not suitable for pasture, which now, because of manuring of the sheep, are nearly ready for the plow and planting. A neighbor of mine from across the way asked if he might put some of his sheep into my pastures. Well, during the day. Well, I said, oh, that's fine. But I drew up a contract to make sure that they stayed there at night.
Ah, I see. In other words, in 20th century parlance, you would say that the sheep recycled your pasture at night, did they, and deposited it there again. Surely, however, you don't manage this entire 4,000 acres yourself.
No. I lease the land to tenant farmers. Some of them are moderately prosperous. They, in turn, hire agricultural laborers. You see, this is a completely new way of doing things. You spoke earlier of an agricultural revolution. Well, you're right. We have not taken old, existing social and economic systems and made changes. Instead, we have created an entirely new system.
I see. It's interesting. In the 1500s, Sir Thomas More used to speak about the sheep that ate men. Do you know what he meant by that?
Well, no, I can't imagine what he would mean by that. What did he mean by that?
Are not your sheep turning out peasants? People who farm the land? Are you not evicting people in order to satisfy these sheep?
Well, I think what I am doing is making maximum use of the land. I am letting those tenants, I am renting the land to them, leasing it to them, and if they want to make a go of it and raise some money, well, then they are free to do so. But I think that I am improving the wealth of the country.
Well, let me get this straight, Mr. Astic. You mean to say that you have not evicted any tenants? That you haven't had to replace any workers with enclosures?
Well, I might have evicted some, but indeed they were not very successful farmers, and they probably shouldn't have been there. They probably should find some work up the road anyway.
And what might that be up the road? Might it not be the poorhouse?
Well, if it is, then that is probably their lot in life, isn't it?
They're just deserts.
Yes, for being poor farmers, perhaps.
I see. I said before I chase you away, and I think this interview has come to an end, Mr.
Yes,
Astic.
I think so. You did not tell me that you were going to ask me questions such as that. You said you wanted to hear about my sheep, and I was quite willing to talk about that. I was not willing to talk about this other sort of thing. I'm finding it very uncomfortable, and I think it's probably upsetting Amanda.
You think your discomfort might be due to the fact that these sheep are consumers of the lives of other people, of other families.
They also create work for other families with their thick fleeces, and they provide work for spinsters who can spin the wool, and then we make more cloth and sell it abroad and increase the coffers of our country.
Ah, a patriot, I see.
Indeed, I am only doing it for England.
Thank you very much, Mr. Astic, who owns 4,000 acres for England. And thank you as well, Amanda.
Yes, Amanda. I think we will take our leave now.
A couple of very enlightening revolutionaries. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't know how much I will thank you. Amanda, come. You see, you have upset my sheep. Come.
Well, that's rather interesting to see the whole thing like this. I'm used to seeing all of this being involved in it. This time I got to sit back and to